Rabotai, tonight we're going to start in chapter 17 in the prophet Samuel. That chapter is actually, I'm sure most of you well know about that chapter. It's a very well known chapter. And I'll tell you why. Because that chapter speaks about the war between King David and Goliath. But tonight, Be'ezrat Hashem, I'm going to try. I don't think that we're going to finish that chapter because that chapter is a very long chapter. As a matter of fact, you have close to 60 verses, so I don't think in an hour we can finish it, especially when we explain the Shorim in depth. So I think that's going to take us at least 2 sessions or 3 sessions to finish that chapter, but we're going to learn it in depth. That means we're not just going to explain the war, we explain everything, what's hiding behind everything. So, Be'ezrat Hashem, na'aseh v'natzliach, ve'Hashem alenu berachamav yarviach. We're going to start in verse 1. We have our Baal Koreh with us, and we're going to start chapter 17, verse 1. For those of you that have the book of Samuel, they can follow us. Vayasfu plishtim את מחניהם למלחמה, ויאספו שוחה, אשר ליהודה, ויחנו בין שוחה ובין אזעקה באפס הדמים, באפס דמים.
The Philistines assembled their camps for war and assembled themselves at Shocha, that is, to Judah. They encamped between Shocha and Azekah in Ephes Damim.
Okay, what's happening here? In this verse, the prophet described to us that Philistine actually gathered the army and ready to go to a war against the Jewish people. The Targum is Yonatan ben Oziel, that lived during the time of the Second Temple and also during the destruction of the Second Temple, and the Malbim, Rabbi Meir Lebush ben Yehiel Michael Weiser, he born in Ukraine 215 years ago. They both explain something very interesting. They explain like this. You know why the Philistines gathered together and have the courage now to go to a war against the Jewish people? Because if you remember in the last war that the Jewish people have against the Philistines, what happened? Yonatan, the son of Shaul HaMelech, King Saul, managed by himself not only to start the war, almost to defeat the entire Philistine. And then Shaul HaMelech and the rest of the soldier follow Yonatan. Okay, but he said that here something very interesting happened. On the moment that the prophet Samuel anointed David HaMelech, we explain that the spirit of strength, the spirit of Gvura that usually HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives to a king of the Jewish people disappeared completely from King Saul. And that's what actually caused, okay, the Plishtim, when they start to see that King Saul is hesitating, King Saul doesn't have this strength, doesn't have this courage, what's happened? They start to have the prowess, they start to have cheekiness. Not only that they come to war against the Jewish people, okay, they also manage, listen to that, to go and to conquer a land and to put the army camp in a place that's called Socha. Where is that? That was in a part of the portion of Yehuda. And the prophet said that if you look, they actually camp and they conquered that area. a matter of fact, they didn't have to fight. They just came there. They entered there, and they took that place that called Shocha. Okay? But it says, Vayasfu Shocha leYehuda, that they have the courage, they have the audacity, let's call it, to enter the place inside the heritage of Yehuda, okay, that called Shocha. And we explained that they actually build a camp. That means the camp, the army camp, they put it where? In part of Yehuda. That means that they came from their land without even asking. They conquered that piece of land, and they call it Shocha, and they made their camp. The Mitzudot David, Rabbi David Alchela, that he born in Galicia. He born in Galicia 336. Also, Rabbi Yeshaya also explained that if you look here, the prophet says something very interesting towards the end of the verse. It's called Be'efes Damim. What does it mean, Efes Damim? So they both explain that that place used to be a special place that used to be prepared for war, okay? And a lot of blood been spilled there. That means that that place have no other purpose except for battlefield. And the Plishtim was ready there, above, just above it, ready to go to war against the Jewish people. And where? In a place that called Efes Damim. And that place was just for battle between two armies, between two nations to fight. Let's go to verse 2. And in verse 2, it says something very interesting. ושאול ואיש ישראל נאספו ויחנו בעמק האלה, ויערכו מלחמה לקראת פלישתים.
So Saul and the people of Israel assembled themselves. They encamped in the Terebinth Valley, and they arranged for war against the Philistines.
Okay, here we see that the prophet doesn't actually explain that, but the Malbin and the Targum Yonatan, explain that what the prophet tried to describe, tried to tell us in this verse, that Shaul and all of his soldiers, okay, gathered to a place that called Emek HaElam, and they put a tent there. They put the tent in Emek HaElam, okay, and they're actually getting ready to fight against the Plishtim. But the Targum and the Malbin explain that Shaul HaMelech, King Saul, and all the Jewish people was so frightened from the Plishtim, from the Philistines, until that they couldn't stop the Plishtim actually conquering the place that we say that called Shocha, that's in a heritage land of Yehuda. Not only that, the Targum and the Malbin explain that the Jewish people were so frightened, and King Saul amongst them, and Jonathan, that was a great strategic fighter, they all actually saw how the Plishtim getting closer to them. And they were so frightened to stand against them that we'll see that they stood on the other side of the mountain, that we're soon going to speak about it in verse 3. And in verse 3, the prophet tells us like this, ופלישתים עומדים אל ההר מזה, וישראל עומדים אל ההר מזה, והגיא ביניהם.
The Philistines were standing on a mountain on one side, and Israel was standing on the mountain on the other side, and the valley was between them.
On a pshat of the dvarim here, and there is nothing really to add up, that the Jewish people standing on one side of the mountain, the valley in the middle, on the other side was the camp of the Plishtim, and they was ready for the battle. But here in verse 3, we see something very interesting. And here actually, we actually start to see how is the war started. And there is something very interesting. Look what it says. ויצא איש הבנים ממחנות פלישתים, גוליית שמו, מגת, גובהו 6 אמות וזרת.
A champion went forth from the Philistine camps, whose name was Goliath of Gath. His height 6 cubits and 1 span.
Okay.
Here
the prophet tell us something very interesting. That Isha Banim, who was Isha Banim? What it mean Isha Banim? Isha Banim, it was a soldier that have a lot of courage, that he come to discuss and to coordinate the battle between the two nations. Not only that, as we explained previously, in daytime they never used to battle at night. So Goliath, that was that man, as the prophet described to us, that he is Isha Banim, and he was from the city of God. You know what was his height? 3 meters, just over 3 meters. 3 meters and a zeret. That's called a zeret. That's over 3 meters. Okay? And who was Goliath? We have to explain. Goliath was the son of Orpah. Orpah was the sister of Ruth. Ruth had 2 sons, Mahlon and Kilion. And when it was a famine in the land of Eretz Israel, she and her husband, Melech, gone where? To the land of Moab. In the land of Moab, Mahlon and Kilion married 2 sisters, Orpah and Ruth. They both was princess. Okay? Akadosh Baruch Hu killed Melech. Then he killed Kilion and Mahlon. And suddenly, Naomi found herself a widow with 2 daughters-in-law. And she decided that I'm leaving the land of Moab. I'm going back to Bethlehem. I'm going back to the land of Eretz Israel. At the beginning, Ruth and Orpah said to Naomi, we're going to walk with you. Naomi tried to reject both of them. Ruth didn't accept it, and she stuck by Naomi. And we know that later on she married Boaz. Then they have a son that's called Ovad. Ovad have a son Ishai, the father of David HaMelech. That's the dynasty. What's happened with Orpah? Orpah didn't join Naomi, but she accompanied Naomi, and she walked 40 steps with Naomi to say goodbye. After she left, listen to that, she didn't go back to the land of Moab. She gone to the land of Plishtim. Listen to that. When she arrived in the land of Plishtim, just before she left, Naomi kissed Orpah to say goodbye. The Ari Kadosh, Rabbi Yitzhak Ashkenazi, explained that by that kiss, that Naomi kissed Orpah, she actually absorbed all the holy spark that she had on her, and instead, Orpah now suddenly start to feel very strange, and an evil spirit full of impurity penetrated to her. And when she gone to the land of Plishtim that night, she married 100 men in one night. Some of the Mefarshim say also a dog she married that night. And that's where came Goliath. Hazal explained there that what's happened, that Goliath becomes such a strong man and such a hero, that we'll see later on when David HaMelech came. How did he came to fight with Goliath? He came with a stick, and he came with stone. We'll explain that by Ezrat Hashem later. It's part of the depths. Why a stick and why 5 stone? So here we see that the prophet described to us that was a man that used to coordinate the war. Who was it? From the Plishtim camp. That was Goliath, a man that full of courage, a man that a great warrior, and he coordinate with the camp of Israel how many hours the battle gonna be, when it's gonna be, and how is it gonna be. All they have arrangement how the battle gonna be. So here we see something very interesting that the prophet tell us, that who was that man? That man was Goliath. Let's continue and see what's happening in verse 5, in 7, 5, 6, and 7. And here in those 3 verses that we're going to read, the prophet going to describe the armored suit that Goliath had. It wasn't a normal armored suit. It was a very, very sophisticated, and we'll explain what was hiding behind that armored suit. וכובע נחושת על ראשו, ושריון קשקשים הוא לבוש, ומשקל השריון 5,000 שקלים נחושת. ומצחת נחושת על רגליו, וכידון נחושת בין כתפיו, וחץ, some people say ועץ, okay, חניתו כמנור אורגין, ולהבת חניתו 600 שקלים ברזל, ונושא הצינה הולך לפניו.
He had a copper helmet on his head and was wearing armor of mal. The weight of the armor was 5,000 copper shekels. He had a copper shield on his legs and a copper neck guard between his shoulders. The shaft of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and the blade of his spear weighed 600 iron shekels. The shield bearer walked before him.
What's happening here? We have to understand that in those verses, the prophet took an effort to explain to us about the special armored clothes, the armored suit, and we'll see that was a suit that Goliath was wearing. And we have to understand what's so special about it. So the prophet described to us that all the clothes of Goliath used to wear, those armored clothes. But he had also a soldier that used to walk in front of him, and we'll explain shortly why. And he used to have a shield to protect Goliath from the rocks that they used to throw on him. They didn't throw it by hand, obviously they used to shoot it, the arrow, the spears, and etc. But we have to understand what's hiding behind it. The Mahari Kara, Rabbi Yosef Kara, that born in France 959 years ago, he explained that Goliath was a great army man. That means a great warrior, okay? And he used to wear that suit, okay? That it's made everyone basically feared from him. Whoever used to see Goliath wearing that armored suit used to be so scared that didn't want to go to the war against him. People was frightened of him. Okay, but the Mefarshim asked, why did the prophet given us such a sophisticated information about the clothes. Rashi HaKadosh, Rabbi Shlomo Yitzhaki, that born in the city of Troyes, in the north of France, 984 years ago, and also the Metzudot David, okay, they both explain that beside the armored clothes, that the helmet that he used to wear, the shoes, the metal shoes that he used to wear, all of it was actually tied like in a knot, like in a spiral by a metal string, okay, like a wire, like a metal wire, okay. And what was so special about it, that suit that he wear, there's a secret about it, said the Mefarshim. He said that we know that when a person wears such a heavy armored clothes like this, a suit like this that made from steel, number one, his vision is very limited because that was only his vision. And the helmet, all he can see just from the eyes like this. So his vision was very limited. Number two, the steps that he used to take make him very slow. So it was here, we explained that was a metal wire, like in a spiral, that used to tie the shield of the body and the legs, include the helmet with the mask that come, and it used to go completely. That means you couldn't penetrate to the body and to harm Goliath. But what was the secret? That metal wire used to thread around in the back and used to have a wire that go until under the shoes of Goliath. Why? That because Goliath was a slow mover, he couldn't move fast, and he was limited. The vision was very limited. A person that doesn't wear a helmet can surprise him and come from the back and try to open that suit. But he couldn't. Why? The Mefarshim explained that one wire used to tie the entire suit, include the helmet, okay, until the body. Include the body, include the shoes, and the knot used to be under the shoes. So when Goliath stand, you can never open that wire. To open that shield, armored shield, Goliath have to lift up his legs. And only then you can untie the entire shield. Said the Mefarshim, that was the secret. That's why the prophet described to us everything about it. And that's what made Goliath so strong and so fearful. Everyone was frightened of him. He feared everyone. And that's what the prophet tried to tell us about the special armored clothes of Goliath. Now we're going to go to verse 8 and 9, and let's see what's happening there. In verse 8, we see something very interesting. ויעמוד, ויקרא אל מערכות ישראל, ויאמר להם, למה לא תצאו לערוך מלחמה? הלא אנוכי הפלישתי, ואתם עבדים לשאול. ברו לכם איש, וירד אליי. אם יכול להילחם איתי, ויקני, והיינו לכם לעבדים, ואם אני אוכל לו, והכיתי, והייתם לנו לעבדים, ועבדתם אותנו.
So Goliath, he stood and called out to the battalions of Israel and said to them, why are you going forth to wage war? Am I not the Philistine, while you are the servants of Saul? Choose yourself a man, and let him come down to me. If he can fight me and kill me, we will be slaves to you. And if I defeat him and kill him, you will be slaves to us and serve us.
In this verse, in these two verses, actually, the prophet explained that Goliath calling the Jewish people, and he said to him, listen, we don't have to go the two nations for a battle. We can solve that disagreement easily. We're going to have a match. You're going to choose for you a man that's going to fight with me. And whoever going to win the battle between us, between the match, the nation that lose have to be slave to the nation that win. Pshat of the Dvarim. The Malbin and the Metzudot David, the Metzudot explain something important. He said, why Goliath actually mentioning slave? What's irritating the Philistine that they have to speak about slave, that choose for you a man, you are a slave to Shaul? What's happening? The Malbin and the Metzudot explain like this, that the Plishtim, when they saw that the Jewish people chose a king, and now they slave to the king, that means whatever the king tell them they have to do, they didn't like it. They hear Goliath saying to the Jewish people, look at us. We are a nation that's full of democracy. We don't have a king that everyone have to listen to him. You at the moment a slave to who? To Shaul HaMelech. Okay? I want personally, you know who I want to fight? I want to fight your king, King Saul, because you all slave to him. And if I'm going to defeat him, you're all going to be a slave of us. But if Shaul, if King Saul going to defeat me, we're all going to be slave of yours. So that's mean what's irritated the Philistine when the Jewish people chose a king. Another idea that the Mefarshim explain about the behavior of Goliath. Goliath here actually saying to the Jewish people, listen, at the moment you're a slave to King Saul. If after the match we're gonna win, you have nothing to lose, because anyway you are slave. You're slave to Saul. Instead, you're gonna be slave to us. But if you win, if King Saul gonna win the match, no matter what, you're still gonna stay slave. You and my nation. That means that here the prophet telling us that Goliath actually embarrassed the Jewish people by telling them that no matter what, they're going to be slave, and they are slave. That's what he said to them. You are slave. That's how Goliath tried to irritate the Jewish people, to force King Saul to come down to have a match with him. Okay? Let's see in verse 10 what's happening. In verse 10, we see something very interesting. ויאמר הפלישתי, אני חירפתי את מערכות ישראל היום הזה. תנו לי איש ונלחמה יחדיו.
Then the Philistines said, excuse me, I have disgraced the battalions of Israel this day, saying, give me a man and we will fight together.
What's happening here? After the Jewish people didn't agree to the battle because everyone was frightened from Goliath, okay, he started to get cross, the prophet said. And he actually start to disgrace the Jewish people, start to curse, start to shout, not only on the Jewish people and embarrass them, and King Saul, obviously, also, lo aleno, he cursed the Almighty. Okay? We shouldn't say that, we say Birech Hashem. Okay? And he said that now, I want you to send, I'm embarrassing you, I'm cursing you. Okay? I'm actually swearing on you to send the man to come down to fight with me. The Mefarshim explain something very interesting. Why did Goliath done it? Why did he actually curse the Jewish people? So the Rashi HaKadosh explained that Goliath here says something very interesting to the Jewish people. What did he say to them? He said, look, you chose king to yourself, King Saul. Sorry, you chose king. Okay, your king is so frightened. He's actually so frightened that he's not even willing to stood up for you. So he start to embarrass and to scare the Jewish people more. It's come to tell them the king that you choose cannot help you. The king that you choose is more frightened than you. Look to which king you decide to be a slave. That's how Rashi HaKadosh explains. In verse 11, let's see what's happening here. וישמע שאול וכל ישראל את דברי הפלישתי האלה, ויחתו ויראו מאוד. Oy.
Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistine, and they were terrified and greatly afraid.
Why? We have to understand that the prophet tells us that Shaul and all the soldiers, all the battalion, everyone was frightened. Everyone was basically didn't know what to do with themselves. They were so frightened that they didn't know what to do. But the Mefarshim asked, I don't understand. Where is the spirit of courage of Jonathan, of Shaul? Where is all the spirit? Where is the spirit of the king? The Mefarshim explain that that spirit of courage, Kadosh Baruch Hu took it from Shaul. And the moment that the prophet Samuel anointed David HaMelech in Bethlehem, that special spirit that Shaul got when he been anointed as a king disappeared from him. And that courage of spirit moved to David HaMelech. Therefore, Shaul HaMelech didn't have that courage to stand up to defend the Jewish people. When the nation saw that the king that they're relying on, that's going to fight the war for them, more frightened than them, they now lost any hope. And here comes something very interesting. In verse 12, look what it says. ודוד בן איש אפרתי הזה, מבית לחם, יהודה, ושמו ישי, ולו 8 בנים, והאיש בימי שאול זקן בא באנשים.
David was a son of a certain Ephrathite, a man from Bethlehem in Judah. His name was Yeshai, Jesse, and he had 8 sons. In the days of Saul, the man was old and would come among the elders.
Yeah. What does it mean, come amongst the elders? We have to understand. Here we see that suddenly the prophet not speaking anymore about the war. Look, he's changing now, and he's moving towards David HaMelech. And he said that David HaMelech is the son of Ishai. Also, Ishai have 8 kids. But then the prophet says something very interesting. Ve'aish b'imei Shaul, and the man in a time of Shaul is old, and he come with the man. It means coming with the man who's old. What's happening here? So on a pshat of the Dvarim, it's come to tell us that Ishai, okay, the Mefarshim explained that Ishai, okay, was an old man, okay? But Hazal explained something more important. Ishai was a very important man. Not only that was an old man, he was an important man. Therefore, Ishai never joined the people to go to war, never joined the soldier to fight against the Plishtim. But the Metzudot actually bring a different interpretation. The Metzudot say because Ishai was a righteous man, not only because he was old, because he was righteous, because he had a wisdom, he was a man of wisdom, he was a special man, okay? And the Jewish people, okay, used to follow him from place to place. Therefore, Ishai couldn't go to the battle. In verse 13, look what it said. וילכו שלושת בני ישי הגדולים, אוקיי? הלכו אחרי שאול למלחמה. ושם שלושת בניו, אשר הלכו במלחמה, אליאב הבכור, ומשנהו אבי נדב, והשלישי שמע.
Yes, Yeshua's 3 oldest sons left home and followed Saul to war. The names of his 3 sons who went to war were Eliab, the firstborn, the second to him, Abinadab, and the third, Shammah.
What's the Hidush? In this verse, the prophet described to us that the 3 older sons of Ishai joined Shaul HaMelech and gone to the battle. What is the Hidush? Why did they have the prophet have to tell us that Eliab, Abinadab, Shammah joined Shaul HaMelech to go to the battle against the Plishtim? The Mefarshim explain like this. Listen what they explain. That the third son, the 3 sons of Ishai that we mentioned, Eliab, Abinadab, and Shammah, used to go always to a war with Shaul HaMelech. They used to go hand by hand, always with Shaul. Wherever Shaul used to have a war, a battle, they used to join him. That's the Mefarshim. But the Radak, Rabbi David Kimchi, he born in France 864 years ago. He was one of the Kadmonim, and he explained like this, also the Metzudot also bringing it, that the main reason that the prophet telling that Eliab, Abinadab, and Shammah used to go to a war with King Saul, there's a reason for it. Why? Because there was very important people, those 3, the 3 sons of Ishai. Therefore, the prophet mentioning their name to say that they gone to the battle. So there is 2 opinions here. Why did they go? One, because they was very important. One, because they used to be very close to Shaul, and with every battle that Shaul won, they used to go. 2 different ideas. Why is the prophet mentioning the name of the son of Shaul? In verse 14, the prophet tells us, ודוד הוא הקטן, ושלושה הגדולים הלכו אחרי שאול.
But David was the youngest. Just the three oldest followed Saul.
What's happening that the prophet here repeating again that the three older one follow Saul and David was the older one? What is the Hidush here? So on a pshat of the Dvarim that the three older one go into battle, but because David HaMelech was the young one, he didn't join the battle. But the Malbin explained it differently. He said that the main reason that David HaMelech didn't join the battle with his brother, although that David HaMelech was a great warrior, not because he was young, no, not at all. The Malbin explained that David HaMelech actually was a great soldier, great warrior, and full of courage, okay? Because his father Ishai was old, and he needed someone to watch the flock. Therefore, David HaMelech left with his father to watch the flock, while the three older ones gone to war. In verse 16, ודוד הולך ושב מעל שאול לראות את צאן אביו בבית לחם.
Right. David would travel back and forth from Saul's presence to tend his father's flocks in Bethlehem.
Here again, we see that suddenly the prophet moving from the battle and putting a lot of the spotlight on David HaMelech. What's happening? In this verse, the prophet tells us that David HaMelech used to go to the house of Shaul, and then he used to return to his house in Bethlehem. What's the Hidush? That whenever King Saul needed David HaMelech used to go to his place, to the palace or wherever he used to live, and used to play the violin. Why? Because King Saul needed him to take him out of that anxiety and fear. But in the free time that Shaul didn't need David HaMelech didn't stay in the palace. The prophet tells us that David HaMelech returned back to Bethlehem to the house of his father. Watch the Hidush. The Metzudot explain like this, that David HaMelech used to play the violin, nachon. But David HaMelech never stayed with Shaul HaMelech. He didn't want. So what is he used to do? When Shaul felt good and he wasn't depressed, wasn't full of anxiety, and he had free time, David HaMelech returned back to Bethlehem, okay? Didn't want to be with Shaul all the time. Until here, the prophet speaking about David. In verse 16, you'll see that now the prophet returning back to the battle. What's the time? Okay, we have time. In verse 16, the prophet tells us, ויגש הפלישתי השכם וערב, ויתייצב 40 יום.
Right. The Philistine would approach the Israelite camp early morning and evening. He presented himself for 40 days.
What's happening here? The prophet tells us on the pshat of the Dvarim that the Plishti, referring to Goliath, he used to despise, used to embarrass, used to curse the Jewish people in the morning and in the evening. And he done it for 40 days. And we have to understand why the number, first of all, why is he mentioned morning and evening? And number 40, why he telling us 40 days? What's the Hidush? There is here two questions. Why did Goliath used to scream, used to curse the Jewish people, used to swear on the Jewish people, used to shout and embarrass them, despise them in the morning and in the evening? Why during the day? No. What's happened at midday? Why only in the morning and in the evening? Question number one. Question number two, the prophet tell us that it happened only for 40 days. Why dafka 40 days? What's the hidush of 40 days? The number 40. So we, Be'ezrat Hashem, now we're going to get into the depths of it. The Radak, Rabbi David Kimchi, explained to us that the main reason that Goliath used to embarrass the Jewish people, used to curse them, used to despise them, used to embarrass them, used to shout on them, used to curse them, used to curse Lo Alenu, Mevarech et HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the morning and in the evening. You know why? He said that behind that hiding something very important. He said that Goliath knew that if the Jewish people will say Shema Israel, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be with them. So he tried to disturb the Jewish people by that he used to curse and he used to scare them every morning and every evening. Not to say the Shema, to try to disturb them from saying Kriyat Shema shel Shacharit and Kriyat Shema shel Arvit. That means he tried to make sure that he will annoy them in the morning and in the evening, that they cannot focus to say the Shema in the morning and in the evening. That was hiding behind it, the Radak. What's happening with the 40? What's happening here with the 40? Upset. So, okay, according to the Pshat of Dvarim, David HaMelech arrived on the 40 days. And we'll see that he fought with Shaul and then it stopped. But the Radak explains something in a deeper way. Radak explained like this. The Radak said that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he gone to heaven, he gone for 40 days. And on the 40 days when Moshe Rabbeinu came, he brought the Torah. Bnei Israel received the Torah because he gone up to heaven. On the 40 days he came from the mountain, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu came to Mount Sinai, giving us the Torah. Said the Radak, in the merit of those 40 days that the Jewish people was waiting in Mount Sinai, waiting to receive the Torah, on the 40 years when they received it, that when was the salvation of the Jewish people against Goliath. That's the interpretation, Rabotai, of the Radak. But the Midrash look at it a bit more deep. What's happened? We explained that when Naomi left the land of Moab, Orpah walked with her 40 steps. We explained that Naomi, with her kiss, that she kissed Orpah, she took all the spiritual, the good spiritual spark of her that was on her. Said the Midrash, now that Orpah was empty, didn't have any good, pure spiritual spark, HaKadosh Baruch Hu needed to pay her for the 40 steps that she accompanied Naomi. By that she accompanied Naomi for 40 steps, HaKadosh Baruch Hu given her son, that's going to be such a great, strong son, okay, that he will have the merit, okay, to be a great warrior, also for 40 days. And Goliath got the strength to curse, to shout, to embarrass the Jewish people, to despise the king of Israel, to make them frightened. Why? For those 40 steps that Orpah walked and accompanied Naomi. And that's the secret behind it. So in the morning and the evening, Goliath done it on purpose, to disturb Kriyat Shema shel Shacharit and Arvit, that the Jewish people cannot focus. on Kriyat Shema. The 40 days, it's towards those 40 steps that she accompanied Naomi. Let's look at verse 17, 18, and 19. And here we see something very interesting. ויאמר ישי לדוד בנו, קח לאחיך אפיית הכלייה הזה, ועשרה לחם הזה, והרץ המחנה לאחיך, ואת 10 חריצי החלב האלה תביא לשר האלף, ואת אחיך תפקוד לשלום, ואת ערבותם תיקח, ושאול והמה וכל איש ישראל בעמק האלה, נלחמים עם הפלישתים.
Ishai said to his son David, please take this ephah of toasted grain and these 10 loaves of bread for your brothers, and hurry to the camp, to your brothers. And bring these 10 cheeses to the captain of the 1,000. Inquire after the welfare of your brothers and obtain a report of their welfare. Saul, they, and all the men of Israel were in the Terebinth Valley fighting with the Philistines.
What's happening here? It's very interesting, and we have to understand. A matter of fact, here the prophet telling us that Ishai, the father of David, now sending David HaMelech to take a special flour, a roasted wheat, that actually been roasted right now, to take to his brother. Why? Because his brother was in a battle. The little food that they take with them wasn't enough. And they obviously finished to eat all their food. Why? Because the battle between Israel and the Philistines taking much longer. It didn't happen like one day a battle and it's finished, or 2 days like in the rest of the battles. Here we see that for 40 days that battle took. They actually didn't fight. But that battle, that nerve-wracking, took 40 days. Ishai said to David HaMelech, I want you to go to the battlefield. I want you to take food to your older brother. What are you going to take for them? You're going to take for them, number one, 10 loaves of bread. But with it, you're going to take also roasted wheat that actually been roasted just now. But with that, I want you to take also 10 pieces of cheese to who? To the captain of the 1,000. Who's that, the captain of the 1,000? Rashi HaKadosh explained that the captain of the 1,000 was Yonatan, the son of Shaul. Okay? Also, Ishai said to David HaMelech, I'm sure that your brother been for too long in a battle, they didn't have enough food. I want you to take money with you. I want you to pay, I want you to redeem, okay, the pledge that they put to buy food for some people. I want you to pay the pledge and make sure that the brothers, okay, that food that they bought for themselves, okay, I want you to make sure to redeem that your brother doesn't owe anyone money. Where was the battle? The battle was in the valley of De'elah. That's where the Ishai sent David HaMelech, because there was Shaul and the rest of the battalion of Israel. Came to me now while I'm talking, why Ishai is saying to David HaMelech, redeem the pledge. If they owe something, pay it. Why? Came to me now. That's my humble opinion. You don't have to accept. While I was reading it, it came to me, and while I'm interpreting the Shaul, to me it looked like that Ishai was so worried that his kids gonna go to the battlefield while they're owing money. When a person owe money and he didn't pay it, Chas v'shalom is like took something that not belonged to him. Nachon, that in this case they borrow it and they put a pledge, obviously, part of their shirt, part of their clothes, whatever it was, part of their belonging. Ishai said to David HaMelech, make sure that you pay those people that your brother bought food from, or whatever they needed. Make sure that you pay. Why? So not going to be a derogatory if, God forbid, the war will start against the three sons of his. Rabotai, we exactly now at 9 o'clock. Remember, we finished at verse 19. Next week, Be'ezrat Hashem, I'm not sure if we're going to start about Hanukkah or we'll do one more and then I'll do about Hanukkah, because I want to do at least one show about Hanukkah, because this verse is, as I mentioned, is a very, very long verse. It's close to 60 verse. This chapter is a very long chapter. There is 58 verses, close to 60 verses, very long. I don't think that I'm going to finish it even in the second episode. But Be'ezrat Hashem, next week, we'll look at the second part of the meeting of David HaMelech with his brother, also with Shaul HaMelech. What's happening there? So remember, we stopped in verse 19, and verse 20, we're gonna continue. Rabota, if there is anyone that want to ask question regarding the Shaul, Bechavod, please unmute the microphone and I will try to answer the question if there is any question regarding the Shaul. Bechavod, okay.
Hello, it's Anthony, how are you?
Erev Tov, Antonio.
When David fought Goliath, just for interest, I don't know if you've discussed it, but how old was David at that time and how old was Goliath at that when they fought each other?
David HaMelech was an age of 20. David HaMelech was in the age of 28, 29.
29. And Goliath?
Goliath, I'm not sure. And I'll tell you how I know the age of David HaMelech. Actually, you know what? If you wait 1 second, I have a book here. If you give me 1 second, regarding the history. Okay, let me just look here. When is David HaMelech? You give me 1 second, I'll try to see.
Okay.
When it was the war. Okay. Let me see. Goliath, boom, boom, boom. No. David HaMelech was 28. That's I know. Because that's when he was 28, when the prophet actually anointed him. And for 28 years, David HaMelech was, what do you call it, being fought by his brother and his father for 28 years. That they was thinking that he's a mamzer. You follow? No, it doesn't tell me anything here about the age of Goliath. No. No. No, it doesn't say anything about Goliath, about the age. Nothing. It doesn't tell me how old was Goliath. Sorry, I don't have anything here. The book called Yageli Benu, it's a book all about, it's a book that's been written by a cousin of mine. He wrote all about the time in the history. That's where I give you all the information of the years usually. Okay, sorry, Anthony. But David HaMelech was 28 years old.
Okay, thanks very much.
Pleasure. Any other question, Rabotai, regarding the show? Someone want to ask? Who's with us? I see Jeffrey with us. Where's Orna? So Orna with us. Here's Orna. Orna, no? We're waiting for your question. Bechavod, Orna. Erev Tov.
Erev Tov. Now, I hope everybody's well.
Thank God.
I don't want to ask a question. I just want to say that this chapter is very important because Hashem is raising the curtain on David. That's the whole point of the whole perek, is that David should be revealed. Sof sof.
Yeah.
Don't know if I'm
That's
right
how,
or not.
in that chapter, Akadosh Baruch Hu basically showed the strength of David HaMelech, but we'll see that Akadosh Baruch Hu revealed him as a great hero. But here also, from now on, we'll see that in the middle of the chapter, Shaul already started to be jealous of David HaMelech and become already that Shaul start to be suspicious that David is the one to take his kingdom. We'll see when we explain that here Shaul, King Saul, already start to realize that that young man that's standing in front of me, he's the future king. And we'll see how Doega Adomi, behind the scene, putting the poison, feeding King Saul the poison, and we'll see how everything started, the hatred against David HaMelech.
Yeah.
Although that Shaul HaMelech in one stage didn't hate David, and he realized that David HaMelech could kill him, and he never killed him, and he doesn't want to fight, Doega Adomi ve'Achitofel HaGiloni, they the one that continue to put fume into the fire to cause the destruction and the hatred between David and Shaul. And as I explained in previous shiurim, Doega Adomi, Rabotai, Doega Adomi was the Rosh of the Sanhedrin. Do we understand what it means, Rosh Sanhedrin? He was the highest Jewish authority in Israel. He was the highest authority when it's come to Jewish halakha. No one can talk to him. Hazal explain, Haya Doresh Bamigdal HaPoreach. Adoso en lo chelek la'olam haba. He have no share for the world to come. Imagine that. You know, why is the highest authority in Eretz Israel today? He's the chief rabbi of the Sfaradim, the chief rabbi of the Ashkenazim. Huh? Imagine Doega Adomi, the Rosh of the Sanhedrin, the head of all the Sanhedrin, have no share for the world to come. He had so much wisdom, but he used it all for negativity. So as Orna said, David HaMelech in this chapter going to start to be the focusing of the headlight from now on. Thank you, Orna. Frank, I see that you unmuted. You want to ask something, yes. Frank? Bechavod?
Yes, you may have answered the question, but I want to know how Orpah produced such a big person. I thought maybe she went to somewhere where there were giants, and maybe that's why. But you explained to me that Hashem gave her a big son. But I just want to know.
He married her. When I say she married, and one night she slept with 100 men, and then came the dog. You know what is 100 men in one night? It's wow. You see how what the evil spirit can do to your being. He can go so much down so to become,
Quickly.
I don't know how to describe it. So who know who was married with her, one of them that make that giant? Who know? One of those Philistines.
Mm.
I'm going to tell you a secret that not many people know. Amongst those 100 men, and that will answer your question. You know who was with her, who married her?
Mm.
Not by choice, Frank. Rabotai, not by choice. The Plishtim took Shimshon, Samson,
Oh,
and forced him
really?
to be with her.
Oh,
Why?
wow.
Because Shimshon, Samson, been caused a lot of havoc for the Philistines, and they wanted him dead. So how did they manage to bring him down? By that number one, Delilah, that she was a Philistine woman,
Yes.
he married her. So the first thing that they ask her, how does he get so much strength? Where does his power come from?
Yeah.
And they told her, if you're not going to give us the answer, we're going to kill all your family. And she obviously, woman, when she wants something from the husband, women know how to get it. And she told them, so they cut his hair and he lost all of his strength. And then they blind him. And they used to, before the story that he break all the pillow that we're talking about in Ashkelon, there's a story behind. They put him to slavery, to hard slavery. What did he used to do? Tohen barichain, Hazal say. He used to ground the wheat. But Hazal say here they forced him also to be with Orpah.
That makes sense, eh?
You understand? Okay,
Yes.
I didn't want to speak about it. I'm actually many of the things that maybe going to be interpreted the wrong way, I didn't put in a show. Why? Because if people wouldn't understand and they will think that Has v'Shalom, the judge Samson, married Delilah, they can actually say, you see, Samson loved, and they don't understand why he married Delilah. There's a secret behind it. So suddenly, if I'm going to mention that he also was amongst those 100 men that she married in one night, and the Mefarshim say also a dog came in and joined the party. And the dog married Orpah, lo alena. So if I would say that Samson also, it will sound like Has v'Shalom not good. So I have to be very, very careful how I'm navigating the shi'ur, okay, to make sure that Has v'Shalom not going to be takala, lo titze takala tahat yadi. That means I wouldn't make any mistake. But the Mefarshim explain, Frank, if you wouldn't ask me, I wouldn't explain that Shimshon was being forced to sleep with Orpah, being forced, I repeat again, being forced against his wish to be with Orpah. So now you're going to ask me, why did I force him? My humble opinion is that to try to degrade Orpah. Why? Because she married Jewish people. You understand how wicked the Plishtim is? Because she married Kilion, Orpah married Kilion. Ruth married Mahlon. So they wanted to degrade her. You married Jewish people? You understand what they made from her?
Yes, yeah.
בסדר?
Thanks. Yeah.
I'm sure that many of you didn't know that Hidush,
No.
that again, I repeat, was against his wish that they force him to do. Orna, you teach a lot of the Tanakh, if I'm not mistaken. Did you read that Hidush that they bring in the Mekubalim? Did you hear about it?
No, I didn't. I must say it's a chidush for me tonight.
So זה החידוש הזה, that Hidush come.
So you're saying that when Chazal said טוחן בריחיים, זאת הכוונה.
כן.
בעצם מאחורי זה, okay. Just so that I'm with you, but so
that's מובא that's brought by the name of the mystical Rabbi. I think that Avi HaKadosh bringing. And also other Mepashim.
but she was not Lila. She was not Lila, was she?
No, Orpah was someone else. Glila was the wife of Samson. זה משהו אחר. Glila
Okay, so
was
it's
the
not
wife
the
of
same
Samson.
person.
No.
Was the mother.
Orpah is Orpah. Orpah is the
Okay.
sister of Ruth. Two different things. Glila was a Philistine. Orpah was from Moab. She was a
Moab,
princess
yeah.
in Moab. She and Ruth. There was two princesses. But what the Plishtim tried to do, to humiliate her, to degrade her. Why? Because she married a Jewish guy. You follow? זה החידוש פה. Of the 100 men and a dog. You follow?
השם ירחם.
ויציל, לא רק ירחם. השם ירחם ויציל את כל עמו בית ישראל.
לא עלינו ולא על אף אחד.
אמן, שנהיה אותו. Okay, so anyone
Thank
else
you,
have any
Rabbi,
questions?
for all your
Beautiful.
interesting showing.
Pleasure.
Hello?
Well done. כן, yes, Anthony, yes, Antonio, בכבוד, כן.
Goliath was very tall. How tall was he actually? He was a giant. How tall was he? How many meters?
Who?
Or feet?
Who?
3 meters.
Goliath.
Goliath was.
How tall was he?
6 אמות, listen, 6 אמות וזרת. This is a zeret, you see? That little finger, what you call it pinky, that's called a zeret in Hebrew. 6 אמות divided by Ama, it's called 48 centimeter. Call it a half a meter. Let's round it. Okay? 6 divided by 2 give you 3 meter. Just over 3 meter. That's the height of Goliath.
That's very tall.
You follow, Antonio? בסדר? I answer your question?
Yes, thanks very much.
Pleasure.
Rob?
Any other question? Other question?
I have a question, Rob.
Oh,
okay?
בכבוד, I waited for you. I waited for you, Jeffrey.
It's nice listening to everybody ask questions. It was very good. This Goliath was such a clever guy. He was not only a valiant, strong man, he was psychologically so smart. Here he goes, he knows. The Philistines were defeated by the Israelites. They were defeated. They had no chance against them. Why did they hesitate? Why did they even hesitate to go to battle against them, which they were going to do? Goliath took advantage. He came along and he showed his strength. He took the attention away. Now, surely one man, one person, to be able to sway a nation away from attacking the Philistines on going to war. He didn't want to go to war. He said, why we should go to war? What do we need to go to war for? Because he knew they couldn't win. He knew it. That's why Goliath said, he'll do it. And the problem,
But
go ahead.
you know why Goliath wanted it? And why did Akadosh Baruch Hu done it? Because they wanted a king. Because they wanted a king. And the moment that they wanted a king, Akadosh Baruch Hu wasn't happy with that. And the prophet wasn't happy. But Akadosh Baruch Hu wanted to show them that the king cannot be their salvation, a human being. You follow?
Yeah.
And Goliath, he sent Goliath to pay the rewards, obviously, to Orpah, that she walked Naomi.
The 40 steps,
But Goliath was full of tumah, was very arrogant, but very smart.
Yeah.
That he put the entire Jewish people to be so scared that they were scared from their own shadow. The entire Israelite was frightened from their own shadow. And here HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed to the Jewish people, you wanted a king. Here's your king. If I'm not with the king, he can't do nothing. But what is the message to us, Jeffrey? That here HaKadosh Baruch Hu tried to tell us, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu not with us, we can't do anything.
Yeah.
If HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't send refuah shleima, all the doctor in the world is waste of time. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't give you courage, you can't win. Look at the war in Israel. Look at the war in Syria. Not one bullet been shot.
Yeah.
We just walked through. The rebel didn't have a hard job. They was running, like in a 6-day war, like in Yom Kippur.
Exactly.
They left everything behind and ran away.
Why?
Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu put fear on them.
Yeah.
HaKadosh Baruch Hu put courage now in an Israeli Defense Force. In Gaza, in Lebanon, in Syria, with Iran, with the Houthis, with Iraq. 7 different places to fight. 7 different battles. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu not with a human being, no salvation.
Yeah.
That's the message to us. That we have to understand that everything from HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
So the message at that time that the spirit left Saul. The spirit left Saul. That's why he was in such melancholy. That's why David had to be there. He had lost it, but it was on David. It was on David. He was there. He had that courage. That was given because he was already king. He was already anointed.
That's exactly it. Sorry, I need to just make a point here. I need to make a point. That's exactly it. I need to make a mark here. Okay. I need just to mark where we stop. Exactly is that the courage, and here HaKadosh Baruch Hu introducing David HaMelech. Like Orna say, he revealing him. But how's David HaMelech come? Come with full courage. And you see, we'll explain when he came to fight with Goliath, Shaul HaMelech said to him, take my clothes, my armored clothes. You can't walk like this. And he will explain there what's happened. And David HaMelech put him away, and he took his stick that he used to work as a shepherd. He took his side bag with 5 stones. We'll explain why 5 stones, what's happened with those stones. We'll explain everything.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So even though a shepherd boy, he was king. He had the courage of the king, which he was.
Because He's been anointed as a king.
He's been anointed. Phew.
That's the head of it.
Yeah.
But when you learn, you know, many people heard about this chapter about the war, but not many people knew what we explained, the Mefarshim brought, the last part that I explained about Shimshon, Samson, and a matter of fact, even if I do the show, I don't want to put it again. So I'm frightened how people will interpret it. What I said. You follow?
Yeah.
So when you learn, you have to learn with the Mefarshim, with depth.
Well,
And Baruch
why
Hashem,
do- Sorry, Rob, just one thing. It's just why does it make such a point that it was Yeshua's 3 elder sons? Where are the other 4 other than David? What happened to them? I mean, where are they?
If you look at the beginning, very good question. You look at the beginning, when the prophet gone to the house of Ishai, and he looked, he also mentioned the 3 first sons, Eliab, Abinadab, and Shema. Why? Because he was thinking that those 3 that were so important, that look, they the one that actually supposed to be one of the king.
Yeah.
You remember that we explained
Yes,
that.
yes.
He
He was shocked, Yeshua, because he didn't even. He was embarrassed even to mention that.
And then when the prophet saw David HaMelech walk in, how is the prophet described? Admoni, ve'yefe einayim, ve'yefe sa'ar. That David HaMelech had a beautiful eye. He was a red skin. And we explained the color of David was made from those 6 different colors. And the prophet, when he looked at David, what he was thinking? He's a murderer. What did HaKadosh Baruch Hu say to him? My Messiah walked in, my king walked in. And you sitting? You still sitting? Raise up, stand up, and in front of the new king, and in front of the king that I chose, the king that will listen and will obey everything that I will tell him.
Yeah.
ויהי דוד מצליח בכל אשר, והשם עמו בכל אשר יעשה. Whatever David done, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was with him.
Yeah.
Rabbi, I'm going to tell you a secret now. The Zohar HaKadosh says that there is 3 names that whichever way you're going to read them, whichever way you're going to turn that name, it's always going to stay the same. David, how you write David? Dalet, Vav, Dalet. From the back to the front, David. That means David can go down, but till again he's going to raise up. David. Who's the second one? His father Ishai. Yud, Shin, Yud. Yud, Shin, Yud. Second. Who's the next one? Natan. Nun, Taf, Nun. Nun, Taf, Nun. Those 3 names say the Zohar Kadosh, they're very strong name. Whichever way you put them, whichever way you turn them, in the end, they're going to rise up.
So just going back to the question. So the other 4 sons were non-entity. They were.
There was there. You know what I'm saying, Jeffrey? There was there. But there wasn't in the league of the first 3. The first 3 was the chosen one. That was the important one, let's call it. Amongst the son of Ishai. When I say the chosen one, not by the Almighty, not by the
Yeah.
Almighty. בסדר?
Okay. Yeah. They made a point of it, that the ones that were very prominent in Yeshai's eyes, they were the one that went out. He sent them, they went out to war.
Yeah.
They had courage.
Yeah. But suddenly they don't have courage. Where's their courage? Where's Yonatan?
Quiet.
The captain of the 1,000. Where is he? Also scared from his own shadow. Well, in the
did a good
first war,
job.
in the first war with the Plishtim, when he was, after his father been chosen and been anointed as a king, he took the courage, he took the, what do you call it, the initiative, and he attacked the Plishtim with a sword that he got by mistake. He didn't even hardly have a sword. So where is the captain of the 1,000? You follow? That's the Chokhmah. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to reveal David HaMelech.
Yeah.
Now taking the curtain, opening the curtain, showing us the real king.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Beseder? Any other question, Rabotai?
Just a quick, it's just me again, just a quick thing.
Bechavod, yes.
I wonder how they had clothing for Goliath, the clothing to fit him. For such a very tall person, how did they make clothing for him? Shirts, trousers, shoes.
Sure, that according to his own size. They have a tailor and he measured it. You know? Hazal explained that Goliath had 6 toes, 6 feet, 6 toe in his feet, 6 finger in his hand, in each one of them.
Yeah.
That you didn't know either, Nahon?
No, I didn't know that.
I'm sure that not many people knew that. You have to read the Mefarshim. Ken, Chava.
Thanks very much.
Okay, pleasure. Any other question, Rabotai? No. In that case, I would like to thank everyone, to wish all of you Shavua Tov. Enjoy your break tomorrow, the public holiday. In the meantime, we're going to continue with the Shorim. People SMS me and people talk to me that they want us to continue because it's going to be online and they're all going to be connected to the internet. So we will continue with the Shorim. And those that gone on holiday, to wish you a safe trip, a beautiful break, relax, enjoy your holiday, and we'll see you, please God, this coming Thursday again with the Shiur on Parashat HaShavua, Be'ezrat Hashem, that the Kadosh Baruch Hu going to give us the Chokhmah, the strength, the energy to bring new Hidushim. Amen. Ken Yeh Ratzon. Rabotai, thank you for joining us. Have a good night. I hope that you enjoyed the Shiur. All the best. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good night.